Welcome to another edition of Talk City Greensboro, produced by GTN, featuring interviews and events happening around town. It's an easy way to stay in the know while you're on the go. Subscribe to Talk City on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, or SoundCloud so you can keep up with what's going on in Greensboro City government. I'm your host, Josh Johnson, and joining me in the studio, as always, the man at the controls, Mr. Devin Smith. Sir, how are you?
I'm doing fine. How about yourself?
I'm glad to be in conditioned air.
Yeah, it was definitely hot over the weekend. What's up, Greensboro? I'm glad that you have joined us this week. We have a guest that was supposed to be featured on the podcast months ago, but we're glad he's here now.
Absolutely.
Today we have Chuck Watts sitting with us around the table. He is the city's attorney. So, how you doing?
Good morning. I'm fine.
Thanks for being here.
Yes, definitely. So for those who don't really know what the city attorney's office does, as well as the city attorney, could you just kind of explain what you do on a day in and day out basis in your position in your department?
Sure. So the city attorney's office is basically the attorney for city government. Sometimes people think that we are the attorney for the citizens of the city of Greensboro, which is not really the case. We represent the council and anyone that really the council wants us to represent within the city government, which ends up being, the executive team and the various departments. Mm-hmm. So our goal is to try to help them proactively do things that comply with the law. To plan to do things so that they are in compliance with the law, running city council meetings, engaging in contracts. But we also have the role of managing litigation that is brought against the city. Mm-hmm. The important thing about us not representing citizens is that as lawyers, we have ethical obligations not to be conflicted.
Yeah.
So and I've had it happen numerous times, people will call the office seeking to gain legal advice, and they're not really happy when they hear me say that, sir, I appreciate your concern, but we represent the city, not the citizens. I guess, that's probably correct from an ethical standpoint, but it sounds harsh.
Yeah.
We represent the citizens through the city.
City.
If we can help the city do its work legally and in a way that's in compliance with law and plan to do it that way, it creates a more efficient environment for the city in general and saves money for the city in general. So the people of the city of Greensboro are always our concern, but individually we can't represent them because we have a conflict of interest.
Yeah, law is kind of one of those things where it's not always pretty, but it is kind of is what it is.
Yeah.
The law we either follow it or we don't, and there's going to be consequences if you
we
don't follow it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
And ultimately, those decisions are more on the side of the manager or the council. My role is to make sure that they are informed about the law and the requirements so that they can, make the best decision.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So we tried to set something up in February, but scheduling was off and we just couldn't put it together. So since February, a new time has kind of presented itself. Things are not the way they were in February. Given the emphasis on racial equity and equality, how important is it for you to be in this role as a black man?
Well, I've tried not to say this as much as I say it, but I've been black in America a long time. And it's not something that I have a choice about. It's just part of who I am. Mm-hmm. And I come from the generation that was engaged in the, early phase of desegregation. I can remember segregation. Mm-hmm. And that process of trying to, move towards freedom for black folks in America, has been a subtext of everything that I've done. And everything that I continue to do. So how that fits into this role kind of depends on the circumstance, in the sense that sometimes being informed by that experience allows me to help counsel or members of the executive team or the various departments kind of understand that perspective.
Yeah.
But at no point am I not a black man in this role. So, Black lives matter.
Yeah.
Black professional lives matter.
That's right.
And it's not one of those things where it's like it affects you in the role as far as it's not like it's gonna change. If you were a different color, it wouldn't change the way that you approach doing law. However, it adds a personal effect to the way that you just kind of you see things and your perspective. And I was trying to see for sure if you were officially the first African American or black man to be city attorney. I couldn't quite figure it out, but I also couldn't debunk it either. So I believe you are the first African American to be city attorney for the city of Greensboro. So with that being said, how does that make you feel?
There's a
You're
lot.
the first.
The first.
So it just seems to be getting old to be talking about being the first black to do this, the first black to do that.
Yeah.
But it also, there's a lot packed into what you just said. Part of it is that there's been an inordinate amount of turnover in my role. There's been a lot of people that have sat in this seat, and that's not good for the city of Greensboro. It's not good for the city government.
Yeah.
So part of my goal is to try to, smooth that out a bit, and to be able to have some consistency in this position for a while.
Yeah.
I had lunch with the county attorney when I first got here, and he said, "Welcome to Greensboro, Chuck. I've been with the county for 10 years." He said, "This is the 6th city attorney welcome lunch that I've had."
Wow. Yeah.
So this role is it's had its trials and tribulations here in Greensboro, and I can't begin to know all of what that was about in each instance.
Yeah.
It's largely different players at the table on the council. It sort of is what it is.
Yeah. And I will say that there has been minorities in the role, but African American, I couldn't quite nail that down. Now, you're from Durham.
Yes.
And your family was fairly prominent in that area in the black community. So tell us kind of about your background. I know your dad was really big. He was a doctor. So just kind of tell me what that was about. You mentioned growing up kind of on the back end of segregation and desegregation. So just kind of tell us what that was like living in Durham.
Wow. Where should I start? I guess recently there was a piece published in the New York Times by a woman who is an African American woman in Nashville, and the title of the piece was "You Want a Confederate Monument? My Body is a Confederate Monument." And she went into the whole discussion about the fact that she could go back and follow her lineage, something like 5 or 6 generations, and had no evidence of any white people in her lineage. But she's a relatively light-skinned woman. And so she drew all kinds of emphasis from that fact. The interesting part for me is that I can actually go back further than she can and have the same sort of situation. So, I can go back really to 1810 when there was a man named Benjamin Spalding who was bought his manumission, married a woman and lived down in eastern North Carolina. He would have been my great-great-great-grandfather.
Yeah.
But the Spalding clan has existed all around the state, and it's right now we have the largest family reunion in America.
Wow.
Benjamin Spalding and his wife had, I think, 11 children. Most of their kids had 10 or 11 kids. And one of them, one of his children was a woman, and she married a guy named Moore, who had my great-grandfather, whose name was Aaron McDuffie Moore. And Aaron McDuffie Moore was a doctor. He was the first black doctor in the state of North Carolina. And he teamed up with a guy named John Merrick, and the two of them sort of were the backbone of the Black Wall Street history in Durham.
Okay.
And so, I mean, in Durham, they were behind almost every black institution that you knew about or know about. North Carolina Central, they were founders of that.
Wow.
I mean, they weren't the founder. James Shepard was the founder, but and the academic involved, but they were signed on the sheet as founders.
Wow.
North Carolina Mutual, Mechanics and Farmers Bank, the Colored Library, churches, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the environment that I grew up in. My mother was, so their two children got married, and my mother and her sister were the direct descendants of those two guys, which is kind of odd.
Yeah.
But so anyway, Durham has been, I grew up in Durham. I tell people, basically grew up in Durham for about 20 years, left North Carolina for about 20 years, and been back for about 20 years. You could do the math. But I was happy that Durham became a place that it was comfortable for me and my family to move back to.
Yeah.
And, it's been good the last 20 years or so.
Yeah.
Nice.
That's great. It's a lot of history right there.
Absolutely, yeah. So you have an MBA, and your undergraduate degree is in economics, so some would think that you're a business guy. So what attracted you to get a law degree in practice?
Well, I guess I started off always wanting to be a lawyer. But when I finished college, I had opportunity to go to business school on a scholarship. And I had some opportunities to go to law school, but they were not really what I thought I wanted at the time.
Right.
So I followed that path. As I said, my family's been very involved in business. Business was something I was interested in. And really, I see myself as a business lawyer, more so than the litigator type.
Right.
I've had the opportunity to manage a lot of litigation and to be involved in some litigation. But for me, most of the time, litigation comes down to business decisions, business choices.
Huh. Okay.
I like to tell my clients that litigation creates a framework for negotiation.
Okay.
Wow.
And, we have courts for civil justice. Mainly, I don't know if you saw the play Hamilton, but the main reason we have civil courts is so we don't have muskets at dawn to resolve disputes.
Right, right.
So nobody ever said that civil litigation was a good approach to dispute resolution. It's literally the worst approach to civil litigation. I mean, to dispute resolution. It's really only fun for the lawyers that do it.
Wow.
So when I was general counsel at North Carolina Mutual, I actually got us to the point where we were neither plaintiff nor defendant in any litigation. And I thought that was a big accomplishment.
Yeah.
When I was general counsel at the NCDOT, we had a massive amount of litigation going on around this MAP Act problem. And I was able to get going on trying to settle those cases. At the end of a piece of civil litigation, there's always negotiation, even then. Like you win in trial,
Yeah.
and you think you're going to get a lot of money because you were the plaintiff and you won. Well, the other side can drag it out. They can appeal.
Right.
They can appeal from there. And if you really want to get it resolved, you got some information. There's information for both sides to see, and there's probably a number that will resolve it.
Yeah. Business.
It's
Business. That's right. That's the business part.
Yeah.
It's important, I think, for people to understand that civil litigation is really about trying to resolve a dispute. And most of the time, the money part of a dispute is the biggest part of settling it. So,
Yep.
Yeah. Well, I definitely appreciate you coming down. You shared a lot of history, a lot of what you do here with
He
the city.
built the framework for more podcasts.
Yes. We'll definitely have to have him
Absolutely.
back.
Absolutely.
I'd be happy to come back.
Well, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks. Stay tuned in weekly by subscribing to Talk City Greensboro on iTunes, Stitcher, and Google Play. And don't forget, you can download Talk City from SoundCloud.
That's it for this week. Thank you for tuning in to Talk City. Be sure to watch GTN, your official source for news and information about the city of Greensboro. GTN is available on Spectrum Channel 13
AT&T Uverse Channel 99.
and North State Channel 31.
GTN also streams live and now on Roku and on the city's website at greensboro-nc.gov.
Have a good one.
Take care.